So in your family, is there a big like hubbub about how to pronounce your last name, whether it's Knudsen or Knudsen? I know two people with this kind of last name spelled the exact same way, but they don't pronounce the K.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That makes sense. No, I don't think so, since my husband's last name.
Oh, really?
I really get it wrong. My original last name is Navarre, and people used to say Nivar or Navarre, those whole bit about it, but. People always pronounce it wrong, but
Same district.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's Norwegian.
Put the agenda already, Jackson?
Good. Perfect. What we can do is work with you.
Hi, good morning. Hi, Jake. Well, thanks. Good to see you.
Issue of commercial space.
You're doing the last weekend?
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
I was in Barcelona.
Yeah, well, let's see, but it's laid out by.
That's great.
Yeah. It's.
Yeah.
I think that's
They can jump around. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, movies, yeah.
I was gonna say, did you go to that?
You were gonna say.
Yeah.
I went to the movies.
Would you say?
Jack the Movie.
Yeah. It was, I would say,
Moving forward, we can just.
as good as you would hope.
Do you want to move?
It's good. It's not.
No, I'm gonna say.
It seemed like it probably had.
Yeah.
But there's clever action scenes.
I think these are things that we can do.
After the next one.
We saw.
Yes, so did I. Saw that as well.
Yeah.
That I was watching.
Yeah, I thought that they used like mark reactions.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's good. Yeah.
So,
I think we just have to figure out how.
and then, you know, effectively land plot.
Right.
I can explain you.
Yeah, yeah, welcome. Hey, welcome. Economic Development Subcommittee.
Yeah.
You're here.
I am.
Yes.
So I want to make a comment. One of the items on the agenda is that, how does that work?
There's a time for each agenda item.
Okay.
Hey, hey, Chair.
Public comment. The slides on your. You want to use.
Am I reading the slides? Yeah.
Uh,
Hey, good morning, good morning.
Like when we're going, you're going, just be like next slide.
It's on this computer. If you guys want to switch, or if you want to click through it, so share and so.
You want to just do that slide? And I'll just say like, slide, next slide. That's it. It's just easier than the.
Hardboard. It's normal birds in the morning.
Yeah, they're not really afraid. I walked within like a foot of one, it just stared at me.
Yeah.
Sneaky. Yeah. You know, my daughters do that every year. We joked she's gonna get kidnapped. I came home, I took my son to football on Sunday, I came home. She's standing next to a car, and I'm like, wait, what are you doing? She's like, oh, hold on. I'm like, no, come on, we have to leave her. So, because, yeah, he's graduation. I'm like, come on, this guy across the street get out of his car. She's like, I want to see the baby. I'm like, "The baby?" And he's like, oh, he wants to see my baby. I was like, no, weird. And all of a sudden, puppy jumps out.
My daughter is.
She's gonna get kidnapped.
We watch movie videos. You know, not Daniel Tiger.
Yeah.
We're watching on.
She's like, hold on. She's like, oh, yeah, this guy, I've never met. He's talking like, oh, that's not how it works. Six. Yeah. We said next week, but
Oh.
yeah, it's that. Yeah. I mean, it was like the neighbor's son, so like,
Yeah.
but it's just like one of those like, can't trust you. Is it what? So, let's get started.
Okay, wonderful.
There's nothing legal.
We can get it done. Recording.
Thank you. Yeah. You like it, like. That's fine. I don't know. What I'm looking for, it was up down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jack went to.
There's one swing.
He's grabbing it.
I see
This chair for you.
maybe this way doesn't have,
The other.
Rolling in.
Yeah.
there's roll on in.
Thank you.
The bird house.
It's called the average. You're over a certain height, then you're not average anymore.
Right.
Yeah, you share and then you show it.
All right.
All right, Chair, we are ready to certify that you have a quorum.
All right, we'll call this to order at 9:02. You're old.
Sheriff Krupke,
Here.
Vice Mayor Alves,
Certainly.
Councilmember Coleman. Let the record reflect that all three members are present.
Nobody's participating remotely. Any modifications to the agenda? Announcements? Staff announcements?
We do not have any staff announcements, Chair.
You both coming or not? No, okay. All right. 5.1, draft minutes, any changes? Any changes? Any public comment on the draft minutes? Seeing none, we will adopt those as presented. All right, item 6, public comment on non-agenda matters. Your opportunity to discuss anything for 3 minutes that is not on the agenda. Go ahead.
Good morning, Janice Carmen, and I woke up this morning and the originally illegal clear cutting across the street from me was resuming. And I just want to know to you city people whom I got involved with the city as Victoria knows by running for city council for 2 things that happened to me. I fell on city property and there was the clear cutting of the property across the street from me, which was totally illegal. And I was told by a city person that it was totally illegal. I wake up this morning, it is resumed. I've written letters to the city. I've spoken with people. There is a person in this room who I wrote a letter to who has to do with this kind of action. And nothing has been done. Nothing has kept me in the loop. And recently I was here because somebody had done an illegal well and it was during the moratorium. And I spent 3 hours here. They sent me over to county after I left here. And my husband was with, I should remember, to tell you, 17 years with the Sonoma County Water Agency as a self-employed civil engineer licensed by the state of California. So I get up this morning, there's trucks. The red truck is parked right across the street from my driveway. I've had ongoing vandalism in my driveway. My driveway is so broken, I can hardly get into my driveway. On the day I was supposed to come and meet the city fathers, I couldn't get out of my driveway because there were so many trucks and other things in my driveway or close to it. And it's been an absolutely nightmare situation and it continues. And today they're continuing with the efforts. The person who has been speaking with me recently is leaving this week. And she was the one that originally told me that this was an illegal, totally illegal action and nothing has been done on my behalf of this. And I want to know, how does the city run that does not respond to letters? They don't respond to public comments. They don't respond to anything that you put forth, especially something as illegal and difficult as this situation is. And I keep getting other people, and I'm familiar with a lot of people with the city. I want to be friends with the city. I've been trying to help and find out what is going on with this city, that they have a budget that doesn't work. What happened to the hand that was in front of the mall? I've gone to 3 meetings and reported that. Nobody seems to stand up and say what happened to the hand in front of the mall. I'm not going to say anything more, but I am not happy that I get up this morning, can again barely get out of my driveway. And there's a family of them, including the children across the street. The children have been on the equipment, running the equipment at the advisement of the father and the grandfather. I mean, this is a nightmare, and nobody is doing anything about it except continuing to build and do economic development. And it's absolutely obscene. And that's all I'm going to say.
Normally we don't get to do a back and forth, but I will say that the hand sculpture that you're referencing was privately owned piece of art. It was-
I know it was, but somebody released it because the city said they
It's
couldn't.
not a back and forth, Janice.
Well, they couldn't pay for the excavation of the hand. It's Carrero.
Janice, this is not a back and
2.5 tons of it. Very valuable.
forth. All right. Any other public comments on non-agenda matters? Seeing none, matters held in committee, I don't believe there are any,
There are none that we have, Chair.
right? Partner reports.
We have no partner reports today, Chair.
Through the chair, may I ask who our partners are regarding the partner reports?
Go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. Typically, our partners are those with whom we may have contractual relationship who receive some form of public funding to help with the administration or implementation of the economic development plans. So
Move on to 9 department reports and updates, 9.1 economic development strategy implementation plan.
thank you, Chair. Hello and good morning. My name is Scott Adair. I'm the Chief Economic Development Officer for the City of Santa Rosa. Here to give you an update today on the Economic Development Strategic Plan. The Economic Development Strategic Plan is the document that was approved and adopted by Council in April 2024, which outlines certain economic development goals, actions, and activities related to promoting prosperity in the city of Santa Rosa. The vision of the council is to reach an economic future which is guided by 3 principles. Those principles, as stated in the Economic Development Plan, are innovation, sustainability, and inclusivity. The Economic Development Plan is broken up into 3 primary categories, or buckets, if you will, which are business growth, economic vibrancy and resiliency, and community investment. The purpose of the Economic Development Team is to help City Council achieve these objectives, and our mission is to do so through implementation of the Economic Development Strategic Plan. We will be bringing biannual reports to City Council on progress for the strategic plan implementation, and we will be bringing quarterly reports on strategic plan implementation to this body. The next quarterly report to this body on the progress of the implementation efforts related to that plan will be in August, and then we'll following the last one for the year in November. Question that we have of committee today, we're looking for some feedback, is concerning the buckets or categories of items which represent updates that we're bringing to this body for recurring progress updates. As I indicated earlier, the Economic Development Plan is broken up into those 3 categories, but we know that there are other areas of interest, such as what's happening in our downtown, business growth, etc. So we'd just like to turn it over to community for a few minutes just to receive any feedback or input that you may have on the categories that we should be reporting on when we bring these recurring updates back to you.
Thank you. Looking at my colleagues, any additional thoughts?
My thought would just be, I think we touched on this last time a little bit, just more analytics, more data, on what's going on, so we can give you feedback on that. That'd be really helpful. Thank you.
If I were to the 3 categories would be, new business, closing business, and then funding for whether it be state or federal grants that are available to business owners.
I think for me, it would be recruitment and retention. I agree with analytics, so that we can have an educated viewpoint on what we need to do going forward, as well as what we're doing for homegrown businesses. Outside of the any function. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, just, no, I think we talked a little bit last time about like who's going outside for what businesses. I think if, and I think you probably have already done some work around this, but, you know, having a meaningful discussion around what the right mix of businesses, ideally, like if we got to pick off of the shelf, what businesses would come in Santa Rosa and, how they would, where they, maybe even if it's industrial, sometimes looking at locations and siting, that might help us to go out and procure those types of, and I imagine you've already done it. That's something that if we know what you're looking for, then we can talk to our contacts and try to make that happen as well.
Sure, I'll pose a question, what are we using? What should we be looking for in the convention?
I'd say maybe, because I know when we prepared for ICSC, that there was an analysis of opportunities and leakage and stuff like that, maybe coming back at some point for subcommittee to see that would be useful. Because that was more targeted of, hey, we're going to this specific event to do this, here's what we need to talk to, here's what opportunities exist. But maybe having that spread out through the subcommittee and others would be useful.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that, Chair. We'll take that back. To wrap up this item, I do want to provide an update on an implementation update on one of our programs. Our job as your staff is to not just update you on our progress, but also to raise any flags for potential opportunities and our challenges that might arise in our efforts to implement and administer the economic development plan. We did have conversation previously in past meetings about one of the new programs, which was launched by our division, which was the Rise and Thrive program. The Rise and Thrive program is a program which, as tied back to the Economic Development Strategic Plan, is aimed primarily at supporting businesses or providing support and education and technical assistance to businesses who meet the federally adopted guidelines for what a socially or economically disadvantaged business is. In the previous conversation, we talked about adding veterans, for example, and other business types to that pool. We have been administering that program. We've had a number of meetings. That program seems to be going well. We have learned that one of our federal partner agencies is not able to support that program because it could be considered an initiative which could be a violation of a presidential order. We share that information with our counterparts at the state, and we're working together on creating other avenues so that we can support those programs. Don't share that to take any policy position, but as the relationship evolves between federal government and local government, there could be impacts to our locally run programs, and we'll continue to keep you apprised of what those impacts might be. With that, we will bring back a more detailed, in-depth progress report on the implementation plan in August, and we'll look to add some of the buckets that we talked about earlier. So thanks for your feedback on that. Here's your statement.
Question. Yeah, how much money are we, not bringing in as a result of that? Or is it, we're losing a grant, or is it just that we can't do it because we can't say DEI?
It was technical assistance and staff support, so there was no actual grant funding attached to it.
So what's the reason that we can't do it? If it's just from our end?
The federal agency communicated to us that they could not offer us staff support or technical.
Oh, their
assistance.
staff support.
Correct, for
Okay.
that program. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
But I want, so how much support were we talking about? And how many, was it like the equivalent of like one FTE or just somebody to help out a couple hours a week?
We hadn't gotten so far in the conversation where we had negotiated like what the actual support would look like.
Mhm.
We just had preliminary conversations with the federal agency about supporting the initiative. At first, they were very eager to
Mhm.
and expressed a willingness to cooperate and collaborate on the program and bring some resources to the program. And then we were told that they could not.
Okay,
So
thank you for the information.
that concludes my update on the economic development strategic plan. Sure.
Thank you very much. We're gonna take public comment on 9.1. 1. Is there anybody that would like to comment on the economic development strategy implementation plan? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to item 9.2, business attraction, retention, and expansion update.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to give a report out on some of our recent recruitment and attraction activities through ICSC. I'm also going to talk about recent conversation held concerning film tourism attraction, and then I'll turn it over to Director Osborne, who will provide an update on the permit ready program. So in May of 2024, staff, along with a delegation of officials representing the city, attended the ICSC conference, in 2025. Yeah, thank you. The ICSC conference, so just this past May. The ICSC conference, ICSC, that acronym stands for the International Council of Shopping Centers. The ICSC conference is the largest national retail trade show that occurs in the US annually. The delegation of representatives from the city of Santa Rosa in attendance over a 3-day period at that trade show met with over 20 retailers, national retailers that are both in the market and not existing in the market. There were 2 teams that attended. One team was focused on retention and expansion opportunities. That team had conversations with existing retailers, national retailers in the market to gauge their satisfaction with the market, to offering support or assistance from our team or from the city, and to also better understand what some of their needs may be. The other team was a recruitment and attraction team, met with national retailers not in the market who were identified in a recent gap analysis and linkage study, which that will be coming back to this body for further discussion, just to ask them about potential expansion plans into this region of Northern California. Over that 3-day period and through those 20 meetings, we generated a number of leads for both expansion, relocation, and location opportunities and potential for retailers. And with that, we'll be bringing back on a quarterly basis to this body with the implementation plan update, just an ongoing update on our recurrent activities as we follow up now with some of those leads who are interested in either locating into the market or expanding operations within the market. That concludes my update on ICSC.
Questions on ICSC specifically? I'll just say that having attended, it was a great opportunity. We get a lot of contacts from businesses, or we send out contacts to property owners asking for information, and it doesn't always come back with detail. They're like, oh yeah, we're interested in coming here, period, end of message. Having the opportunity to speak to these retailers in person, property owners in person, I think was very illuminating for our entire team as to what their plans are, what their intentions are, and what their desires are. Including one that not only said, not only do we want to come to Santa Rosa, it's whether we want to open 1 store or 2. And that was just from a matter of talking to them because we received an email that they were quote unquote interested. So I think it was a great event, great opportunity, and I look forward to it being a regular part of our business development efforts. This is all one item. Do you want to take public comment on all of them at the end, or do you want to take them as we go? What are your thoughts?
Happy to do as you prefer, Chair.
Actually, do we have any restrictions on that?
No, it's up to you.
All right, let's just go let's just go through them all and then we'll come back to them.
Okay, perfect. And I can just add as a footnote to that this is just the retail and national business attraction piece. We're also working on local attraction expansion of our local regional mom and pop businesses as well. And that can be included in that other bucket update that we bring back in the future. So for film tourism and attraction, I'd like to share with the committee that staff recently had a meet and greet and conversation with one of the executive members of FLITS. FLITS is an organization another acronym which stands for Film Liaisons of California. That organization promotes film tourism and activity throughout the state. They work very closely with the governor's office on film incentive programs to attract and retain film activity. We had a conversation with the Flips representative for our region, who also is the film commissioner for both Humboldt County and Delaware counties, to do some benchmarking to find out and better understand how it is that they are creating economic activity out of film. They have a number of large festivals that are film centric, and they are creating a stream of revenue for those communities based on film permits, film permit fees, but also the ancillary spending that comes with having a film crew in your community for anywhere from a few days to a few months. That was just a preliminary conversation. We did include our economic development chair, Councilmember Kripke was included in that conversation, and I also had a report out with our city manager on that conversation. So we're going to continue to explore that as a potential opportunity for the city moving forward, and we'll bring back more updates in the future too. Yes, I would like to, for this last item, turn it over to Director Osborne, Planning and Economic Development, to talk about the Permit Ready program.
Absolutely. Thanks, Scott. And good morning, Chair and members of the committee. The Permit Ready program that we're in the very beginning stages of implementing is very similar to what the city implemented in concept back in 2008, 2009. Downturn in the economy around that point in time, and the department initiated a number of aggressive economic development measures. And one of those was about ensuring that we have a roadmap and a game plan for either vacant parcels or parcels that have a building that can go through a re-tenanting program. So it essentially is a bit of a script that we create on a parcel by parcel basis that lays out what one would need to do to activate that space. And that could be anything as complicated to what was mentioned in public comment, where you're looking at big land development, where CEQA is really governing and there are mitigation measures associated with what you're doing and balancing out that larger construction project, to simply filling an existing building downtown. And really what that looks like ultimately from a portal standpoint is that we have a site-by-site inventory, and we have basically a list of steps and procedures with associated timelines and costs that commercial brokers can hand out, that individuals that are interested in looking at sites can go to, and it gives them an idea of what it would look like. Oftentimes what we see is that as people move into the site, they're unaware that a use permit was required and it just doesn't align with their timeline. So this is a way to go in fully transparent. It's also a way for us to then, which will show up in another agenda item, is to look at those processes to see if they can be expedited and streamlined and modified to reduce staff time and cost associated with it. So it's essentially really just a focus on making sure that we're taking care of our commercial inventory and we understand what needs to be done to move that forward. And as I mentioned, it goes from the very complicated that you can have bare land in a commercial or industrial zoning district that would be a new development. It would go through the challenges that development goes through to simply sliding somebody into an existing space. We market that, we push that out. That's really part of our small business one-stop shop. But really the whole point is to ensure that we're taking care of really putting things into places in areas where we have vacancies. I know we have a definite focus on the downtown, but we have quite a few different commercial areas throughout the city and commercial centers. And through this standpoint, we really treat them equally. We want to ensure that if somebody wants to come in business-wise in Santa Rosa, that we can find the right site for them, and we have all the information they need to make. Especially for a new business, probably one of the more important decisions in their lives, right? It's very difficult for a lot of people to navigate this when they're going through it the first time. So this is really a program that focuses on that. Much of this we really piece together with the existing resources as this starts coming out and it gets marketed. And as we get into other agenda items, you'll see there'll be more council touch points there for potential changes to process. And that will be along the lines of really streamlining and lowering costs for businesses.
Any questions?
I'm just curious to know, do we have a strategy for how we want to locate certain businesses? Do we help businesses to locate a business where we think they'll be most successful? Obviously, ultimately it's their decision, but I can see that just like when we put housing or transit, there's probably some businesses that they better in certain locations. And I'm not talking about zoning. I'm talking just about strategy for success.
It's an excellent point. And I think a lot of what we learned through ICSC was some of the criteria that those businesses are looking for. And really what we see around the junior college is you're seeing a lot of the national retailers want that space because of the foot traffic. We have certain businesses where parking is more important than anything else. So not necessarily being in downtown or those major commercial corridors, they have sort of their brand recognition. People know where they are. They just need to make sure that they have accessible parking in front of the building. So when we look through this program, it's really documenting all of that. It's documenting parking availability. It's documenting how far are you away from an arterial street? How close do you need to be to 101, which is really important to some businesses. And then we can use some of that criteria to help filter and then help them select a site.
Have we enumerated the sort of nodes, and the reason why this is on my mind is, with the Windsor station opening, and I'm thinking more and more about Railroad Square and sort of that will be in demand for a very specific and limited type of use that is not really common throughout the rest of the city, where people will come and run an errand for a couple of hours and leave not in their vehicles, and just that we have a bit of a changing landscape. So.
Yes, and once again, I think that's an incredibly important point too. It's where do you have transit and pedestrian connectivity, and where are vehicles critical? And I think when we look at the transit stops, and it's a lot of ways why we treat Railroad Square in downtown a bit different, because it does have that ability. But just looking at proximity to transit in general and how walkable are sites. And it really gets down to what is the demographic that the business is attracting? What is the age range? What is the mobility range? Are there individuals that are walking? Are there individuals that are generally coming in through vehicles? And as we understand that criteria, we can put that through the filters and we can start looking at the sites. And then we would have a game plan for how they activate the site.
And through the chair, I think there is tremendous value in enumerating pros and cons within whatever strategy we're developing. And so Scott and team, let's make sure as we develop those plans that we're able to list out, why a certain area would be more beneficial than another. And then we can show it to council members.
Or just the business, I don't, it's not as important for me, but yes.
No, it's great.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we will close out this item with public comment. This is the opportunity to comment on our ICSE activities, film tourism, and the public ready program.
I just want to ask about the appeal situation. And again, I spent a lot of time talking with a lot of people. There was this gas station. At this point, I can't even remember. There's been so many things that have happened since. But
This
they were
is specific to these three items. What is?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was, well, no, I do, because it's gas stations, and gas stations have a moratorium on them right now. And what I'm trying to find out is they appealed when they were turned down. And I would like to know.
This is for these three items. How does the gas station fit into ICSC film tourism?
It's development. The gas station was development, and it was unequivocally turned down by the planning commission. Then they appealed it, even though it's during a moratorium, and it's complicated, but I can't find out who to talk to again. So that's why I'm asking about it, because both Gabe and Daryl are, important contacts, but I don't know if they know about these things.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak on 9.2?
Hi, I'm AJ Trombetta. I'm the chair of Railroad Square's Business Development Committee. And I just wanted to, thank you for remembering Railroad Square. I did request some numbers from SMART, and during weekdays, we are the 4th busiest station on the line, and on Sundays, we're the 2nd busiest station on the line. And I can see that there's many property owners that are interested in, ICSC data or how retenanting program data to help us fill those vacancies in Railroad Square.
Else? On to 9.3, entrepreneurship and small business update.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to reshare the slide deck here, get us back on track. So for this next item under 9.3, under entrepreneurship and small business update, first item under 9.3, I just wanted to share with the committee and members of the public that the city of Santa Rosa was selected this year as the North Bay Business Journal's Best of the North Bay City for being the best business friendly city in Sonoma County. There was an event where other entrants and award winners were recognized and celebrated. At this event, our city manager, our mayor, Mark Stapp, myself and council member Natalie Rogers were present. We accepted this award and very happy to have achieved this status and this level of recognition within the county and with the North Bay Business Journal as being the best business friendly city. I believe that the award is circulating around and sitting in various offices.
Questions?
Well done.
I'd be remiss if I didn't help the mayor out and point out that we received this award at Sally Tomatoes in Rohnert Park, who was the previous business-friendly city and is owned by the mayor of Rohnert Park. And showing how great of a city we are. And then I'll also say, anybody who's been in this city for a significant amount of time knows that this is quite the achievement. Santa Rosa has not always had the reputation of being business-friendly. As a matter of fact, I would say probably a decade or so ago, it was probably viewed as one of the least friendly, at least commented as one of the least friendly cities when it came to business. So great achievement by our team. I really appreciate your work.
Yeah, and before we move on to the next item, I do just want to again share and remind this committee and members of the public that we have this year, we launched our business concierge program. The business concierge program offers a number of services and support for small businesses in our community, which includes the creation of a small business ombudsman role. That role is presently held by Rafael Rivera. He's doing a really good job providing some at times hand-holding level support with existing businesses and growing businesses in our community. So hopefully that program and some of our efforts there led to some of the success in winning that award, and we want to continue to win that award every year. So we'll keep trying. For this next item under our small business update chair, I'm going to be turning it over to our program analyst, Rachel Beer, to talk about the results of the Downtown Activation Community Survey and some of the business meetings that were held by economic development staff. This is an item that previously has been termed as a pedestrianization effort. However, we found throughout this process that pedestrianization itself as a term and concept is very limiting in actual overall activation of public spaces and downtown spaces and other programs that can be implemented to support our downtown businesses. So the program has really grown into much more of an effort by staff to really understand what it is that our residents and our businesses want downtown. I'm going to turn it over to program analyst Rachel Beer to give an update on the results and our findings, and also just to summarize some of the activities undertaken by staff. And then we'll come back to me for proposed recommendation that will be bringing to the council in the future. So, Rachel Beer, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent, thank you. And you can just move the slides forward here. Awesome, great. Good morning. Thank you, everyone. I'm Rachel Beer again, program analyst. I'll just be reviewing our tasks completed regarding our street activation, some tasks pending still, and then our overview of our results and findings thus far. So here's a condensed version of our tasks completed, and I'll go into some more detail here. So far in our efforts, we've explored impacts of pedestrianization in other communities, such as Grass Valley here in California, Charlottesville, Virginia, and Madison, Wisconsin. We've conducted one-on-one discussions with businesses in the downtown and our business support agencies. That's the SVDC, our chamber. We've conducted one-on-one discussions with commercial real estate brokers throughout Santa Rosa. We've listened to and received input from our local community action groups. We've conducted interviews with other community leaders and businesses where pedestrianization has occurred in their communities. We've conducted internal discussions with other city department leaders and staff to hear their opinions about street closures. We've reviewed and explored previous pedestrianization of Comstock Mall. We've released a public survey to gather opinions on street closures and activation of downtown spaces downtown. We made our space available here at room 6 for our community group to discuss downtown aesthetics including economic vitality. This was one of the reports attached to the agenda, the Audubon Fonquette report. We held community feedback meetings in room 6, specifically aimed at the business communities. We've held 2 of those so far for downtown businesses. We've conducted door-to-door one-on-one meetings with our business owners on 4th Street. We've reached out to the Downtown Action Organization to solicit input, and their feedback was also attached to the agenda. That was one of the attachments. We made a presentation at the Railroad Square Association board meeting and solicited their input. And we solicited feedback from our city's transit department on potential impacts of street closures, and attended a webinar hosted by the Active Transportation Resource Center on open streets. Next slide, please. So that's tasks completed so far. Some pending tasks for our team still is to perform an infrastructure analysis on the impacts of street closures, performing a traffic and parking analysis, as well as a cost and revenue analysis, and submitting our findings after this meeting to City Council for further discussion and encouraging public comment. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. On our findings to date, for our general findings of the community survey, these results were attached to the agenda as well. We had 1,333 responses from the community survey. I'll go through overall themes. I won't go through every question, and this is just kind of a recap. Most survey participants travel to downtown areas primarily for shopping, work-related tasks, or recreational activities. And the majority of visitors came downtown several times throughout the week or month. The level of pedestrian and vehicle traffic ranges between moderate and low, and the experiences for the respondents were positive, yet some did express dissatisfaction. Regarding infrastructure downtown, some respondents had diverse reactions and expressed satisfaction, while others presented some concerns with the infrastructure. The most popular interests focused on improving walkability and safety, outdoor seating options, and also ensuring accessibility for pedestrians and cyclists. The primary concerns included decreased parking availability, restricted access for vehicles, and the effects on businesses. And the majority of respondents for the community survey reported and they would increase their downtown visits if their streets became more pedestrian friendly. Regarding the business survey, 32 surveys were conducted total, and those survey results were also attached to the agenda for your review. Again, we'll just go through the overall themes. Street closures, their biggest impact was reducing parking and complicating deliveries for the businesses. And they were viewing this as harmful to their customers' access and operations. At events, they did express that events and closures bring more foot traffic, but sometimes disrupt regular business. A few businesses did have a clear plan or a desire to utilize outdoor space or expand outdoor, but some are open to the idea and were uncertain. And most of our businesses that participated in the survey were undecided about closure of 4th Street to vehicles, but some are open to it if well-planned or beneficial. Opposed or undecided are open to it if it's well-planned or beneficial. Some business concerns, and so these are just overall concerns that came through our business meetups with the downtown businesses, business operations and logistical impacts, so loading and unloading, as I touched to from the survey, and accessibility for customers. How the space would be programmed with activities, who would run the programming, that was a concern that was expressed as well. They expressed that events should support and not compete with our existing businesses, so supporting for our downtown spaces. There was a desire to have infrastructure improvements to support any potential closures. So this is everything from lighting to wayfinding signage, garbage cans, art installations. There's a lot of expressed interest in infrastructure improvement downtown. Parking and car access businesses, expressed concern, safety concerns as well, bicycles, crime, unhoused population. I also wanted to touch, and it's not on the slide here, but, other downtown activation methods besides street activation that were discussed in our business meetups were, re-merchandising downtown and improving the mood to make it feel more welcoming. These were some of the discussions that we had. Improving permitting processes. So that's something that Director Osborne had spoke about a little bit earlier. Improving communication with our business community, just in general, between the city or between our partners. Pop-up retail opportunities, and recruitment of more diverse businesses. So these are some other themes of activation that we spoke about. And lastly here, our staff observations were that there was sometimes confusion over our downtown stakeholders' roles and responsibilities and cities' role in that as well. There was an observation to begin with a pilot program rather than jumping full force into closures. And some businesses that had views that were expressed in kind of one-on-one meetups or discussions did not attend the business meetings or fill out a survey. And so sometimes the results in that way. And so we've done first year activation, so I don't know if we want to stop here.
Yeah, thank you, Program Analyst Beer. I appreciate that. Again, just want to reiterate, what started out as maybe a limited conversation about street closures really expanded into a conversation, a greater conversation around activating public spaces downtown. Staff, this was a major undertaking for staff. We probably have cumulative 100 staff hours into this project. And most of that is in talking with people, talking with businesses, talking with business support agencies, chamber folks, our SVDC, our individual property owners who own buildings downtown, and also residents conducting surveys, etc. What we have found, and I think you can see in the results, there's overwhelming interest from the public, from residents, to have some sort of plaza style, open air, walkable space somewhere close to our downtown. However, conversely, there is also very overwhelming concern from the business community around how that might be implemented and what the impacts might be. This really became a seed, if you will, to other initiatives such as the Permit Ready program that Director Osborne reported on, and also many other economic development initiatives, which we've packaged into what we call our downtown activation strategy. And for that, Rachel Beer is going to provide an update on all of those initiatives related to our downtown activation strategy. But for this specific item, this conversation around street closures, to move this forward, Program Analyst Beer laid out a number of steps that still need to occur: infrastructure analysis, cost analysis, etc. Our recommendation or suggestion as staff would be, if this is something that we want to do as a community, that we pilot it first. We start small and we do a pilot program. And then we focus on a street where there are not great impacts to the business community. One such street, which has come up in conversations, is Ross Street. That could potentially be a pilot for a plaza style activation type outdoor retail space effort, but there could be other streets as well. And so staff will continue on its path, given the direction and the guidance we've received, to do the rest of the analyses that need to occur. But we want to give your committee an opportunity to provide input sort of at this waypoint, if you will, in the process on what maybe a pilot program could potentially look like, other outdoor spaces we could potentially activate, etc. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Chair, for some input and feedback. And then once we conclude this item, Program Analyst Beer will give an update on all the downtown activation strategies that have sort of arisen out of these conversations.
Right. This is kind of one of the larger items we're going to tackle. So why don't we just do questions from the committee first? We'll go to public comment and come back for comments.
Smart.
Questions?
Yeah, I'm curious to know, this is one of those things that is something that people feel really intensely about one way or another. There's not a lot of people who are like, yeah, I don't really care. Fill out the survey. But I mean, I know people say that, but the feelings about people who do care are really intense. And you can see that when you go to places where it does work or doesn't work, why people would feel really strongly one way or another. And I was just curious to know, in your professional experience, when you looked at places that where it really did work, like Grass Valley, or places where it really doesn't work and is a complete disaster, like Sacramento, like what the factors are that go into those places and how those factors may relate to what we do or don't have going on in Santa Rosa.
In our observation, our findings, it's really how that space is programmed. And how it's activated, and also how it's marketed and promoted and advertised. It's much more than just the logistical shutting down of the street, but it's actually turning it to an outdoor space. And then also another finding is partnering with the businesses to be collaborators in the activating that space. Not just shutting down the street and filling it with outdoor merchants who potentially could compete with those businesses. And that was a theme that came up again and again from the business community. Once we were able to collect and discuss their concerns and get past that point, the recurring theme was, okay, if you do this, how's it being programmed? How's that programming going to be funded? How is it going to be marketed, promoted to the community, etc.?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And to that point, through the chair, so Cadence and I, Executive Director of Downtown Action Organization, we met with the majority of the business owners on 4th Street. And what was illuminating to me, it wasn't so much that they completely opposed the idea. It was, how do we maximize programming Courthouse Square before we talk about shutting down the street? And so if there is so much foot traffic and we have regular events and services on the square, and then that traffic is now overflowing into the street. Well, now there's a need to have the conversation around, should we close 4th Street? And what we heard was, until we reach that threshold, why isn't the effort to maximize the space at Courthouse Square rather than talking about shutting down 4th Street and now not only having to program Courthouse Square, but also to program now this closed street? And what we heard specifically from your retailers, your jewelers, Forex specifically, they weren't clear about how they would utilize that outdoor space. So if you don't have a patio or outdoor seating and you're a restaurant, it makes sense because now you can extend out to the street. But if you aren't selling food or beverages, there was this concern of, well, what support would we have to now extend the goods that we sell on the curb now? And is that really an incentive? And so I think that's an important piece. And I also just want to underscore the great partnership with the Downtown Action Organization, for us really to understand what's the root of the concern. And I just wanted to make it clear, we weren't hearing don't close it, period, right? It sounds like a good idea, but help us understand how this will actually benefit our downtown area when we're not maximizing the use of Courthouse Square.
I have a question about that, which is when you talk to, say, a retailer and that they may not benefit that much from expanding their square footage, just logistically or for security reasons, whatever it is, into the street, is there any, like, I'm asking, like, how much openness to the idea that if there's, 10x more restaurateurs down there, that there may be additional retail benefits, or is that just something that I make up in my mind, that if you have a lot more people coming down there to eat, they may go into your store afterward, or is that not a thing?
Well, that's a great point. And I think anecdotally, we all think that. I think the same thing. But when you actually talk to the business owners, and we use, say, for example, the Rose Parade or Pride
Rose
Parade.
Parade, those are events that people are going to the event. I'm talking about like just on a regular basis.
Agreed. Yes. Would you consider Wednesday night market?
Sort of, not really. I'm thinking like, I'm just curious if you've had regular, in a pilot, but if you just had a regular sort of street closure, not based around an event or a festival.
Right.
Is it the case that it draws more people down for food, beverage and retail, or do we know in these places like Grass Valley, does it tend to just draw people down for one or the other? Like, is there overlap? Is there stillage? I think that's really critical to
Yes.
bringing along our retailers.
Yeah, so not to give you an attorney's answer, but I think it depends.
On how much risk I'm willing to tolerate, because that's what they're trying to say.
But also what we heard from, and again, I want to start from, my assumption was your assumption.
Uh-huh.
And I went into that same assumption when we would speak with the business owners. And they challenged that quite a bit. The ones that weren't retail, restaurateurs, they were saying, the extra foot traffic does not always equal foot traffic to my store. If I'm a jeweler, maybe they stop in and get coffee at Land and Water or Starbucks. What they're not doing is, oh, that's a nice parrot.
Diamond earrings.
Piece
Well,
of
yeah,
jewelry.
You would probably want to get that at Rose Parade,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I think for me, that's the question going forward is a consistent and regularized street closure model, whether it's a pilot or whether it's ongoing, does that overlap occur outside of special events? And I think we'll need to know that because I think we'll have to have that information if we want to bring along. Yeah, thank you.
If I, so, if I can, sure. Because I think that's a really important point. I did have the ability to visit the Grass Valley location both before and after. And I think in a situation where Grass Valley, you have more tourism, there's more people's moving, it's a stop off. The business mix really matters for that to work. It has to be the business types that do benefit from that foot traffic from restaurants. In restaurants and drinking facilities being the destination, and how does the money continually get spent throughout? Because in most situations, if you have a destination, people are willing to park a few blocks away for that destination because it's the draw. So it's really important for it to be successful. And I think this is why it works in some areas and doesn't work in others, because the mix of the business types is so critical. And if the mix in the business types is not there, where, as I mentioned with our permit support program, in some situations based on business type, the parking is very critical right in front of the business door, then it really can become a bit problematic on making that work. So there's a bit of a formula there. I think as we research this, we're going to try to better understand what that looks like in some of these areas where it is really impactful. But I believe in a lot of those areas, from what I've seen, it's where the area already had a tourism draw. People are coming in from outside of the area. They're not there for regular day-to-day business, like some of our residents go to downtown for some of the uses there. But it's really important to identify that appropriate mix to ensure that the retail does benefit from the foot traffic that is produced by good food and beverage.
Okay, thank you.
I have no comment, but I'm very interested is as we move forward with both discussion with the business owners. Especially specifically the jeweler. I know the concerns are my foot traffic is not my business. It's the generational customers that they base their income off of. And that's not going to be the drive-through traffic.
So I have a couple of questions. So when we explored other communities, did they talk about business attraction after the closure? Were there businesses that were like, yes, now that it's closed, we want to be there?
Yes, through the chair. We did, and there was attraction, and the merchandising mix in most cases often changed to be more of a restaurant, dining, bar, entertainment type focus. As Director Osborne shared, our findings were that most of these outdoor activations, plaza style, street closure activations in urban areas and retail nodes, the evolution of that space, if you will, tended to gravitate away from goods and more towards services and entertainment and dining.
Okay. When we're studying this, do we have a defined area of, I mean, and 4th Street was the initial conversation. Do we have a defined area that we're studying or looking at for this pedestrianization?
The 4th Street was sort of a catalyst point for the conversation. And so many of the businesses whom we talked with were businesses along 4th Street. But as shared previously, through all these findings, and to our assistant city manager's point about activating public spaces that already exist, maybe with greater degree of efficiency, We're now recommending that if we do move forward with some sort of street closure, that we, one, pilot it first, and that two, we pilot it away from Fourth Street. And we actually find another location where there would be less impact from a pilot, where we could still gauge and measure and monitor the success of it with less businesses actually being exposed to a street closure.
And if I can add,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Chair.
No, go ahead.
The analysis, excuse me, was from Fourth Street from D to D. That was the area we focused on. And then also just for the committee, there has been previous discussions about the closure of Ross Street. And most of those conversations went hand in hand with the proposed developments along Ross Street. But that is a potential area too that the council could look at as a temporary closure. We're seeing quite a bit more activity in the Brickyard Center. And with that activity, they may be ways to program that exterior use.
Okay, in that analysis that we did with Fourth Street, did we compare and contrast how many parking spaces would be lost versus the usage of the parking structures?
We're still crunching those numbers, sir. But yes, we're looking at that, and I don't, my understanding from our parking division is, should the city council decide that it wants to close Fourth Street, that we can figure out how to make that happen with minimal impact to those meters that we would lose on Fourth Street. But we're still crunching the numbers to give you an exact estimate of how much revenue would be lost should we do away with the meters on Fourth Street.
I'm less concerned with the revenue that would be lost versus the argument of parking concerns by business owners saying I have to have somebody park right in front of my business versus a block away.
Yeah, we're hearing that. And especially for your restaurants that participate with DoorDash, Uber Eats, that is one of their major concerns, right? Well, where are they going to pick up? I don't want them to have to walk a block, 2 blocks to pick up the mobile order. And we believe that we can mitigate that concern. But that is a concern that we have heard from some of our more popular restaurants.
So those business on B to E, they're having their drivers drive around on the Fourth Street, not back to that lot out their back door there, right by the restaurants. They're going further out to the street to bring their orders out. That's the.
I think that's for the ones that have rear access, La Rosa, for example, right?
Okay.
A major concern of La Rosa, not to call them out specifically, is you close Fourth Street. Where is that driver going to park to come pick up this food that isn't an inconvenience?
They're in DoorDash.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
they are.
If I may, through the chair, I did talk with Noble Folk. They only have front entry loading. There are also a couple of businesses that are on the second story, and utilize front loading. But Director Osborne and I have talked at great length about how these things could be mitigated. It could be time-based closures.
Okay.
There could be closures that are scheduled on only certain days of the week, so that scheduling of deliveries could occur on opposing days. So that traffic and parking analysis, as Assistant City Manager Dunstan indicated, is still one of the next steps that needs to occur. The next steps that would occur, and I'll just, again, because we're past that slide, it's the infrastructure impacts, the traffic and parking analysis, the cost revenue analysis. And then with those, we would package our findings and our recommendations to a final report to City Council recommendation.
Yeah, and just one last thing about like the delivery stuff. I don't know if anybody here has read the Civic Circuit. It's a book about how like delivery to individual nodes rather than like retail or wholesale hubs has sort of changed everything in our culture and how it's like out of Oakland, and it's changed the world. But I just think it's a pretty interesting read, and it's interesting how we incorporate that, but also try to maintain some amount of public commons.
Any other questions? Public comment, this is for both the North Bay Biz Award and the pedestrianization
Let's see.
4th Street.
Yeah.
So, if you have comments on both, this is your opportunity.
Hi, Seymour. Hi, I'm Abby Arnold. I'm a resident of Santa Rosa and I'm active with Santa Rosa YIMBY, which is Yes in My Backyard. We're an organization that is encouraging the building of more housing and the creation of more community spaces. And also the use of bicycles, transit, and walking as a way of getting around. One thing that we find is that we're speaking on behalf of people who aren't here yet. There are future residents, and that's who you really have to be planning for, is who's in the future. We're here, we're in our homes, and that's it. But let's plan for the people who are going to be here in the future. But so many people moving into the downtown in existing buildings that are now in the process of leasing up. And then those that hopefully will be built in the future, in the near future, planning should be about what their needs are going to be. And we've been tabling at the Wednesday night market this whole summer. And it's been really interesting to talk to the people who are there and coming up to our table and are engaging with us about housing. We have a petition for supporting the pedestrianization of 4th Street, and we've gotten 272 signatures on that petition so far this summer. Most of those are from people who live in parts of Santa Rosa and are looking forward to being able to maybe move into the housing that's being built. But we also should think about our visitors, our tourists that are coming here. I think with the two things that we also hear from people are the need for a grocery store in downtown to serve the future residents who are not that far in the future, and also places for bikes to park safely. So let's factor those things in. And the folks that come up to us on Wednesday night, people in wheelchairs, people with several kids in tow, people using strollers, who say it feels so much safer to come to 4th Street when we can walk safely on the street and not be coming around on these narrow sidewalks and worried about cars coming through. So I really hope that 4th Street doesn't get off the agenda, and switching over to Ross, although there is housing coming in over on in that area, is not going to give us the information that we need from a pilot project. So that's my story. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, speaking for Railroad Square Business Development, I so appreciate Rachel coming to our meeting, and thank you, Scott. I've reviewed the DAO's letter that they put out, and speaking for Railroad Square, we would really like to increase the synergy, the walkability between Smart and Courthouse Square. And, we spoke on improving infrastructure. Like, you think about when you're walking from Smart, under the freeway overpass through the mall, it's dark. And we would like to, increase safety there and not get cut off from anything going on 4th Street. Because we don't need a lot of parking because we have Smart and we have the underpass parking. Thank you.
Sorry, you want me to wait?
Go for it.
Janice Carmen. And I had spoken previously about having a ramp over, because I'm kind of dramatic about having a ramp over, because I think it's sort of a big city, it makes us feel like a big city. But I agree with you about the darkness and the difficulty of trying to traverse that area. And I'm thinking more of a permanent closure, or a small, which would be like in front of not Railroad Square, the Courthouse Square. And it would be permanent. And I want to say that in 1978, I went to Sweden, and I went to Finland and to Norway. And when I was out of these places, Denmark, they have what they call the walking street. And I was so enamored with the walking street. It was so incredible. It was a wide avenue, 4 lanes at least. And it was just beautiful. And everyone was, stylish and coming from Europe. And it was very exciting. And I came back, I was on 2 boards at that time. This is a long time ago. I've been around a long time. And I went to those boards. I talked about the walking street. This was pre-Wednesday night market. But I'd like to see something like that where it's permanent for at least a small portion. And then the rest kind of feeds into it. And we call that the hub. We call it the Santa Rosa hub instead of the Santa Rosa Courthouse Square, something like that. But it also would be connected to the mall, to Railroad Square, and you'd be able to have a happy experience and a safe experience, because it's very frightening with the people turning left and turning right and all these things that are going on. And I know that that's traffic mitigation, but that's my thinking about how to get it connected. And the other is, I'm rather impressed with the kiosks at the mall. I went to the mall recently, and the idea of having it permanent, and possibly even with a future idea of having it covered for just a small portion or area, you could have kiosks that would be in the center that would also attract business and increase foot traffic.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this resolution?
Yeah, Cal.
I'll keep it brief. Great to see all of you. It was a pleasure meeting Rachel yesterday. I was actually ironically out there doing the bike belay for Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition. So absolute pleasure. Looking forward to talking with you more. Just here to add up a couple points, since Abby covered most of it. But if you guys need the political cover when this comes forward for a vote, we got you. We will show up with 20 people strong, probably more, and we will give you the cover you need to make this decision, because I understand it's controversial. We actually had a conflict with a local business owner at one of the Wednesday night markets. He got really flustered after I was very polite and engaged with him, and he ultimately ripped up our petition and biked away. It was extremely upsetting, extremely uncalled for. We know who it is, and I intend on speaking with Ananda Sweet about it, because there's no room for that. But that aside, we will still be out there. We will still be gathering more signatures. There is interest in doing this. We have lots of evidence that demonstrates it's successful. It brings more dollars downtown in various places across the state of California. So we are there. We've got you. Really looking forward to building out this conversation, working with you to come to a good solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. I am, actually, this is my first day of summer. I'm a local high school teacher, so I wouldn't ever be able to come here today. So, my name's Anne. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. So I'm also part of the Santa Rosa Unity chapter. And I don't, this is very trying to say I have a dream, but I do. I've been working with Abby, and one of my favorite thing to talk to about when people come up and we talk to them and about talking about our petition, right, with 4th Street, is having a space that feels welcoming, right? Having a space when you go downtown and you're like, oh, this is great. Like there's, like chalk demonstrations, right? Talking about having kids come down, being able to walk on the street, and maybe having like some faux cobblestones, or having public art downtown, right? And having a really welcoming space where people want to go and they want to hang out and they can come there to eat and drink, or maybe bring food and have like a community atmosphere. So instead of speaking to like analytics or speaking to the percentages, that I just want to say for the people that we have talked to, and from my own, desire for that public space, that I am 110% also with Cal. We can bring people, right? There are people who are as excited as we are about having that open space, right? It's not about closing it, it's about opening it to pedestrians, right? To being able to feel safe when you walk downtown. So, sorry, that's what you said.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Katie's.
Hi, everybody. Katie Single Allison with the Downtown Action Organization. First, would like to say congratulations on your prestigious award from North Bay Biz. That's very exciting. I agree that it's been a long time coming for Santa Rosa, and it's nice to see some recognition around it being a business-friendly city. I don't want to repeat the points that the DAO made. Our memo was in your packet. I can also guarantee there would have been a handful more people here to speak about this if we kind of been a little more prepared. But I think it's important to note that, yes, what you're saying, the idea of creating a welcoming, open, vibrant community, all of our business owners want that, without a doubt, they do. But when it comes to the things that they know right now in our current climate are benefiting their business, there is a lot of fear around losing those things. Number one is parking. So if you're losing your parking in front of your business, that's a big challenge. A lot of our business owners, our current mix, as we were talking about, right? The current mix of business owners we have are not, their model is not on foot traffic. So if you're closing it for foot traffic, it will not benefit their business in the way that other businesses, if it was a different retail mix, would. I think closing the street at this point without having their support, their buy-in, it's not going to create that vibrant atmosphere that we want. And I think if you want to create something that's welcoming, closing it right now, you'd run the risk of having more vacancies on the first floor. You'd run the risk of businesses not engaging, businesses closing, businesses being upset. Now, again, all for creating this in the downtown. I think it's not the current time to do that for the reasons I've stated. And also, given the city's current budget situation, there are a lot of things that if our funds to be spent could go into starting to make that environment in the downtown. Better infrastructure. I mean, something simple as light poles, trash cans, benches, revitalizing the landscaping downtown would go a long way to creating that very vibrant environment. So as you're continuing your outreach, we encourage you to definitely look at the safety elements. We continue to see issues with pedestrians in closure areas being hit with vehicles. So please keep that in mind. Please think about activating in areas where there is space for activation. So Courthouse Square, again, like let's see Courthouse Square be that vibrant city center. It's not quite there yet. And also make sure that the businesses keep your outreach going. You guys have done a great job of engaging with them, listening to them. There's a lot of opinions that are being shared. I acknowledge that some of them are not being shared in the best way, and I appreciate everyone receiving that the way they are. So thank you for what you're doing, and please keep engaging with our downtown community.
Thank you very much. That's everybody. It's attendance. So we'll bring it back for final comments.
So the way that I look at this is that what we want is success. I think that the business community wants success, our residents want success, our staff want success, and nobody more than the council members want success. And in order to do that, we have to build consensus without giving up on the goal. So if the goal is to create this thing in a way that works, I think that we need to keep that in as our North Star, but not rush this. We probably need to do more work with our business community to strategize, more work with Public Works to figure out how we can do workarounds for parking, pickup and delivery. How we can make sure that we program in order to mitigate an increase in homeless population that could move in pretty easily if we don't have really active and engaged businesses and paired with programming. I think all these things need to be worked on. I will say this, I'm not sure that Ross Street will yield us. It's fine with me if we want to pilot on Ross Street. I don't think they're the same thing. I think they're completely different issues. Ross Street is you probably do that and you'll have some very different issues. They're just not the same thing. So I wouldn't do that in hopes of that giving us information about what's going to happen on 4th Street. I think that we need to take 4th Street as its own separate and frankly long-range project. And just sort of let folks know that this is where we're going to go, but we're not going to go there without them. And we want their buy-in, and we're not going to hit anybody over the head with this. This is going to be a long-range project where everyone's brought to the table and nobody's going to be left to suffer as a result of us moving forward. That this has to be an add to our business community, and it has to be an add to our residents. And I see if we do this too quickly, it's going to be a problem for both groups and won't give us what we need.
Thank you very much.
I want to repeat what's already been said. I will reiterate that what's at risk here are some of the eldest tenants and characters in downtown Santa Rosa should we move without the general consent?
I think my comments on this, and I have a few, I'm in agreement with, Councilmember Fleming. Ross Street is apples and oranges. I think you have actually 3 businesses that face Ross Street. And if you're going to do Ross Street based on potential development, not to go outside of our, that's not to go outside of our purview, that's something we cannot count on. So I'm not interested in Ross Street. If we're gonna do this on a trial basis, I would, you know, this is not something new. We did close this street before, during COVID. Now we can't use that as an example because different times, different issues, but it's not something new to us that we could close it temporarily. We do have the parklets because of that. You know, those didn't exist pre-COVID and now they do. To that end, I would say, the business survey had one very interesting contradiction in it that I want to focus on. So the question was, would you favor this or oppose it? 7 said they would be in favor, 17 said they would oppose. The very next question was, if we were to, how would you participate? 21 mentioned how they would participate, whether that be in parklet, putting racks out there, public art, and 15 said they would not oppose it, or they would not participate. So you're looking at 24 versus 36 participation in those questions. So I'm interested to see why there's that delta. I would also say that, you know, I do share the concerns about the logistics of getting the businesses what they need, their wares or what have you, for deliveries and whatnot. And I do share the concern about not having, you know, not activating Courthouse Square. We have another agenda item about Courthouse Square's activation, so we'll get to that point coming back to the city. But I can also say that there's also another aspect that's come before this committee and come before council about putting a play structure of some sort at Courthouse Square. There's also another item that we're going to get to about public art at Courthouse Square. I think there's things that we could do at Courthouse Square to activate it. And then finally, also in terms of the improvements, we do have our EIFD, we're called Financing Authority. I'm not on that. I can't speak to that. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but that is an opportunity that exists. And then lastly, you know, when you walk down 4th Street, especially the area that we're discussing, you see there's a lot of vacancies, a lot. And when you're talking about food and beverage, a tasting room or another restaurant, there's a lot of opportunity that exists on that stretch. When we think about moving forward, yes, we do have a lot of our eldest tenants in that area. We do have a lot of historical tenants in that area. But as we look at downtown, I mean, you've got to adapt to a certain level. In the early 1980s, somebody in this area had the bright idea of turning downtown Santa Rosa into a financial district. And we ended up with 5 banks around Courthouse Square. We now have 1. Because things change, times change. So we have to be able to adapt. I think maybe for me, one thing that we can do, since we've closed it temporarily before, and if we want to do pilot programs, is choose a month in the summer and a month in the winter and see how that works. I agree that we have to do it slowly. We have to encourage our businesses to come out street to participate. I know that one of the frustrations with our economic development department, and the city before is when we had things like Pride or the Rose Parade, is there was businesses that wouldn't even open early to get out there to participate. And it's like you have thousands of people captive in an area and you don't want to open your business. It's interesting to me that that's the decision that's made. So we do have to entice them to come out, but I think this is the opportunity to adapt, to move forward, and to look at 4th Street as what we want to do. And this is, as I said before, something that has to be done hand in hand with the Courthouse Square activation. And there's opportunities there, and there's ideas that's been put out there for them. And lastly, I need to talk to Rosa because I just looked at DoorDash, brought up a bed and Breeze, and they're not on there, so I need to find out where they are, because it's one of my favorite restaurants. With that, any final comments from staff? Do you have?
Yeah,
directions?
thank you, Chair. That's a great segue. Perfect, thank you. Before we move on to the next item, I do just want to, I want to express some gratitude, if I may. I want to thank staff. I mentioned earlier, our division probably has close to 100 hours, FTE labor hours into this. It has been a real pleasure. This conversation has been a catalyst to get to know the businesses better. And we've had some great conversations with businesses, not even centric to this point. And I think that that's a really good starting place for the city relationship with our business community. As Director Osborne and I had discussed earlier, it was interesting at one of our business meetings that once we were able to get past some of the fears, some ideation started occurring. And the businesses started getting into that creativity mode. And I think that that's a place where we want to gravitate toward. So I want to thank staff for all their work. In particular, Rachel and Raphael have literally hit the street, walked on foot, and gone door to door to talk to businesses. I want to thank our business partners. Kane's from the DAO came and helped run one of the visioning sessions at one of our business meetings. And so it was really nice to see our collaborators there. Railroad Square, we've gone and talked to, and even though the conversation has been more focused on Courthouse Square, they've been very good about providing input and support. So just again, thank you. And also a commitment, Chair and other committee members, that we did make to the businesses, is this is a conversation that will not stop. We recognize now that as a city, we just need to engage with these businesses more regularly. And we will continue to do that on this issue and other issues that might arise. So that concludes this particular item. And whenever you're ready to move on to the next one.
It is.
Okay.
9.4 economic vibrancy and resiliency updates.
As your committee may have intuited from the laundry list of 6-month achievements that we brought to the council session, and when we rattled off all the things that our small but mighty team has done in a short period of time, we're trying to develop together as a team a culture for action with a propensity for doing. We want the analysis, but we don't want to get caught up in analysis paralysis either. So in tandem with talking with the businesses and hearing from our partners like the DAO and others, we've been putting together a a la carte menu, if you will, of things that we can try to create more activity in Courthouse Square. To Assistant City Manager Dunstan's point, which was made earlier, how can we activate better the existing space which already is there adjacent to these businesses? That includes Courthouse Square. It also includes Comstock Mall. We've been looking very closely at Comstock Mall. So I'm very excited to turn it over again to Program Analyst Rachel Beer, who's going to talk about, while all the things that we've sort of been putting together in this creativity sort of mode, but not just rooted in creativity alone, but looking at examples in other communities that we might be able to do in these public spaces, which can sort of create that future field that everyone is working toward. So I'm going to turn it over to Program Analyst Beer, who's going to talk about the Downtown Activation Strategy, which is really just now a accumulation of all these little downtown initiatives that we're putting together under what we call the Downtown Activation Strategy, which is inclusive of, but not limited to, the pop-up program, which came to council in November, and also the Theater Alley project, report out on the farmers market, and also on second Sundays. And then after that, as part of this item 9.4, we'll turn it over to our Arts and Culture Coordinator, Meredith Knudsen, who's going to get a little bit more detail about the chamber transition update, which is occurring, and what's happening with events in Courthouse Square. So with that, I will turn it over to Program Analyst Beard. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. And I think it's just one slide for this one, just an overview.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Great. And so as Scott mentioned, what we've seen over the last couple of months is that as I'm working on a lot of projects, they're all coming together to kind of accumulate into a downtown activation strategy. And so a couple of these, just one more slide.
Sorry.
Thank
Just,
you.
I'm
No worries.
pulling that up.
Not a problem. And so this is included everything from working closely with our small business community to activate spaces like our pop-up program, which I'll speak to, but also wayfinding signage, creating safe spaces downtown, beautification, working really closely with arts and culture for public art installation. And so at our next meeting in August, we'll be bringing a more detailed report for downtown activation, which will be all of these kind of combined together to look at downtown as an entirety and to see how we can activate the space and make it kind of revitalized. I'll first speak kind of to our pop-up program and our shipping containers. So the shipping container analysis was another attachment on the agenda. So this is a project that I jumped into when I first began here with the city, and we were thinking about how we're activating spaces downtown and how we're supporting our small business community and our entrepreneurs. And what I did was I researched various kind of options and various companies that utilize kind of repurposing shipping containers. As pop-up storefronts, we thought either artisans or small businesses could activate out of these spaces, or maybe we use them as experiential spaces for short periods of time. They can be customized. I think we've spoken at previous meetings about this with windows or art on the exterior. And what the analysis showed was that I also found we have a local supplier here in Santa Rosa, Container City, that offers customization options for more basic models than some of the others that we had looked at. And so we made a couple of, our team looked at that and made a couple of recommendations to maybe look at more basic models to place these throughout spaces, and we could use them in that way in conjunction with our pop-up program to activate the vacancies. So that's how the shipping containers are working with our downtown activation. Go ahead.
And if I may also just interject and add
Please.
that location and placement is still something that we're researching and analyzing. We have had many conversations with Caltrans about whether or not these units could be placed under the freeway to create more connectivity and drive for reasons for individuals to walk from Smart over to Courthouse Square and vice versa. We've also have already had preliminary conversations with our engineering teams about the safety of these structures. They have been put in use in other communities throughout California, so continuing to look at that as well. One thing that I can just quickly add, one thing that we have found in our analysis and our research and talking with businesses and also talking with property owners is that there is sometimes a concern or a challenge with property owners to lease space to businesses who do not have rental history, who do not have, or maybe they're startups and they don't have a proven product, or they haven't captured market share yet. And that can create either concern or hesitancy on behalf of the property owner to lease space to startups and entrepreneurs, or it can create higher fees, higher deposits, the call requests for guarantors, co-signers, etc. So part of this, the pop-up program, is to, one, create more opportunities for sort of instant ad hoc pop-up of these types of services in places throughout the public, whereas there may not normally be space, but also it's just one of the things that we're researching to create more opportunity for an entrepreneur to sort of test their concept before actually going into a permanent space and bringing it to market.
Absolutely. Great. I think that covered the rest of what I had for the shipping containers, and then do you want me to just go right into the Comstock Mall?
Sure.
To finish this one out. Great. Perfect. So for Comstock Mall, like Scott had mentioned, that we've been looking at that space as well for activating and revitalizing this area through a couple of ways: beautification, enhanced public use, and improved infrastructure. So our team's been looking at this through a variety of ways. From landscaping maintenance and tree trimming to lighting improvements and removal of some of the trees. And so our team met with the owner of one of the buildings along 3rd Street so that we could maybe do some kind of partnership in removal of landscaping and activating that space there. We're looking at exploring wayfinding signage, some potential public art installations, working closely with Meredith on that. increasing safety through, potentially safety call boxes. So we see these on, like college campuses. And so we're, meeting with public safety to discuss opportunities to see if this is something that would create safer spaces there. And, potential increased activation of outdoor busking. And so that's where the theater alley kind of piece comes in here. We also thought of this as a potential location for a pop-up, shipping container too, if we activated the space through events or art, music, busking. So, if we we're looking at kind of creating a small project scope for Comstock Mall, so we'll have more details of that soon.
And I can also just, add that there have been other just, concepts that are still conceptual at this point that have been proposed for activation of Comstock Mall, which right now is just primarily a thoroughfare, just a pass through. But we've had conversations with the Symphony. They would be eager if the space was a little more enlivened, if you will, to perhaps do pop-up outdoor music within Comstock. We've talked also with other theater owners and theater group participants about it being, as program analyst Spear indicated, potentially more opportunity for busking, outdoor theater performance and live performance, as sometimes we do get complaints when those individuals are being met from businesses. So we're going to continue to explore this and develop a sort of comprehensive Comstock proposal, which will be coming back in the future, but wanted to get it on the agenda in front of you at this point so that we can receive any feedback that you might have. Anything else on that?
That was it. I'll move into our downtown farmers market and second Sundays. So our downtown farmers market began at Courthouse Square on May 18th. Our first second Sunday was yesterday, June 8th. So it has been very successful, well received so far. So we've had a couple of markets, and I was in attendance and ran our first second Sunday yesterday. Our partners with the farmers market were taking an approximate attendance at the top of every hour yesterday, and I asked at the end, and they estimated around 800 people yesterday. So it's pretty great for our first second Sunday. And they said it's the most attended since they started the market on May 18th, which I anticipated since we had increased activation for the second Sundays. And just a reminder, second Sundays are family-friendly events to increase attendance of families downtown. So we had everything from our police department was there. We had the Children's Museum activating. We had the Mothers Club, Common Ground Society, On Guard Fencing Group doing fencing demonstrations for kids. And we had play equipment. We had all of our conventional farmers market vendors and food, as well as artisans. And so I was able to bring also partner organizations out there, Girl Scouts. I'm trying to think of all of our others that were there, 6th Street Playhouse. So we had a lot of really great organizations that were partnering. We also, on our arts and culture social media, were able to run some targeted ads and sponsored ads. So I wanted to speak to that just to highlight some of the attendance or some of our, responses to the event. And so Meredith was able to help me out with that. So we ran our Facebook sponsor ad from Thursday to Sunday just to get some buzz around this event. And since it's new, and our Instagram targeted ad from Friday to Saturday, we targeted people within all of Sonoma County so we could kind of get some reach. And with anyone with interests in farmers markets, upcoming events, arts and crafts, and music. And on Instagram, we had 2,812 views, and our reach was 2,156 people. And on Facebook, we had 7,019 views, and this was on the event specifically. We had a Facebook event for the event yesterday for second Sundays. And our reach was 3,319 people with 104 responses to the event and 150 post engagements. So I think what we saw was a lot of the response, hopefully, to our running social media ads for pretty minimal cost, brought a lot of people out to the event. So it was our first one of the season. We'll have second Sunday in July, August, and September, and the market will run every Sunday through the end of September. We want to stop
Uh,
her.
Chair, if I may, this is a long item. I'm not sure if you want to pause and take comments before we get into all the event updates, or if you would like us to move on with the next part of this item.
I think we can split these in two, so we can go ahead and take public comment on the,
So pop-up program, Theater Alley, second Sunday.
second Sundays. Is there anybody who has public comment on that? Thanks.
I just want to say that very excited to hear about the Theater Alley program. That's fantastic. Comstock is definitely a space that needs some activation. And then, great job, Rachel. I came down with my kids yesterday, gave it a good time, and it was kind of like a lovely afternoon downtown.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, good job.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, I want to second, I thought it went really well. It was really nice to see all those people out there. We were right next to the Children's Museum and they were thriving. There was a ton of kids there, so it was really exciting to see that. And on the subject of the playground, would love to see that move forward in that empty lot. I'm sick and tired of seeing that chain link fence. I'm sick and tired of chain link fences in our downtown period. We have to get rid of every single one of them. And then, yeah, on the subject of Comstock Mall, but also sort of tangentially related to Courthouse Square, I have a couple friends locally that are DJs that would love to be out there, and I think it'd be really great if we had events that went up until quiet hours, so that, you know, folks like myself could go out there, have a good time, listen, you know, to some good music. And we have lots of events on Courthouse Square in that general area that are great and all, but I think there's other opportunities that we're missing, and I'm hoping we can capitalize on that and really bring more people, you know, hopefully more young folks downtown, so we have a good time. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Anybody else? Let's split this in two. Let's come back to the committee. Is any questions or comments on the first half of this item?
There's just so much about you having being friends with DJs. It's really kind of there. So I'll cede my time. All right.
We want to commend you for the farmer's market, you know, the second, I drive by and I see the amount of activity, it's really, it's where I definitely want sales to go back, you know, not to, inject a pun, but it's definitely, you know, going back to our roots with agriculture and just where we come from.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that. And then the only feedback I have on the Comstock Mall item is to be careful about putting anything too permanent or too difficult to move, because that is an area that is cited for development. That there's two properties there that we would like to have developed. So I don't want to put something in there that we all think is great, and then 4 months later be like, all right, now you got to move because somebody wants to build something. So that's just the one caution I have. We'll move into the second part of this, which is chamber transition and the special events.
Yeah, Chair. Thank you very much. I've mentioned a lot of the great work that program analyst Rachel Beard and our small business ombudsman Rafael Rivera, who's not here today, are doing. But our arts and culture coordinator has similarly been very busy working on a number of exciting initiatives. And so I'm going to turn it over to Meredith Knudsen, who's going to walk us first through what's happening in our evolution of our relationship with the Santa Rosa Metro Chamber of Commerce, and then talk us through what's happening with the recruitment for the new event specialist position, and walk through some considerations with regards to city-sponsored events and signature events. So, Meredith,
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Crupke. This is a really exciting time, I think, as we're talking about all the previous items. To me, it brings up a lot of opportunity that we have. And again, I want to commend Rachel. She really single-handedly took over our second Sundays, made those partnerships, and that's exactly when we look at these events that we'll be speaking of what we want to see in Square and downtown. Starting in April, we began to meet with the chamber, Bryce and I, who's our events consultant, with a transition agreement to retake over the management of 100% of the Courthouse Square events. Starting in April, we began that transition, learning all of the events that are upcoming. And then in May, we also contacted all the event hosts, letting them know that starting July 1, they'll be using our permitting system and also be starting to be charged fees. Under the chamber's blanket event permit, the events that were only using Courthouse Square were not being charged fees. The fees will be pretty minimal, about $300 per event in Courthouse Square. But we want to make sure that transition is not only with us and the chamber, but it's a transition with the community, especially those that use Courthouse Square frequently. So we've made that transition very well. We've been meeting every 2 weeks with the chamber, going through the steps on our outline, checking those boxes to make sure we're not missing anything, right? Now we're in June already. It's gone by fast. So we're working on, which I'll get into, some signature events, an outline of what that could be. We're also looking at quality versus quantity, right? We could pack Courthouse Square all that we want, but what is that doing for the community and the businesses? And really focusing on quality events, I believe is important. And how to activate Courthouse Square better, as Cadence was mentioning, looking at the facility itself. How to beautify it and get people there, even if there wasn't an event. We want people utilizing it throughout the day with their kids. Another item we're currently working on is the marketing resource guide. So the chamber has done a really great job of managing Courthouse Square and also communicating with the business owners and the event permit holder of what can they do. So we're working with them on what is that automated response when they book the event. How are we engaging with that event host, telling them about different opportunities downtown and how they can work with the city for their events. Their blanket permit that they currently have ends end of June. So starting July 1, we'll be taking over and managing those events. And their contract goes until September. So after that, they'll be working with us on getting us the accounting, the overview, sort of a final transition report and continued meetings as we move forward on our relationship with them, which we're really excited about. So a couple of other items here is as we take on these events, we're doubling our workload. So in 2024, we permitted approximately 43 events and the chamber did approximately 47. Our events were a little more complicated because we did any that had a street closure or at that larger scale. In the chamber, we're doing just Courthouse Square, the side streets. So we'll be taking those events on. And so we're right now in the process of looking to open a position for an arts and events specialist. And that position will assist with all of the permitting. They'll assist with the marketing resource guide and be that real pinpoint person for the community and helping program these events. The other item we'll be looking at is our fee schedule. And that position will be helping with that. We've already done a fee analysis of different cities, but we'll be diving further in to ensure we're charging a fair rate for our community members. I would hate to see them be charged and have them be charged even more after that, because we do want to see the downtown activated in this area. And then the last item was the signature events. So we have community promotions and we have SRTBIA funding for events. But we've started to dive into what is a City of Santa Rosa signature event and what does that mean? Right? Is it marketing? Is it local pride? We do have recology services, up to 40 events a year actually that we donate to events. And so would signature events be all these comp services that some were already providing for, such as Rose Parade. So the chamber has been helping Bryce and I determine that outline, which you're running through the team, Scott, to move that forward as well.
And thank you, Meredith. And through the chair, I can just add that this transition with the chamber has been mutual. The leadership from our organization, chamber organization, have met and just talked about the evolution of the relationship and where the chamber's resources are best spent. And there's more of a focus now with the chamber and the city working together more on business matters, business attraction, business sustainment, business recruitment. So they've been very supportive of transitioning these services back to the city. And with the savings on what we were paying the chamber for those services, and then other funds that are already available to us in our budget, this is a net zero change really for us. Which I know in the time of budget deficit, adding a position, we want to just make very clear that it's really more moving responsibilities than it is adding on responsibilities. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for making that point. I do think it's very key that we do manage all of our events in-house as well, as issues arise and that we're knowledgeable on all the ins and outs of what's going on in Courthouse Square, especially as we look at possibly expanding that footprint downtown as well, so that we're involved in all those conversations.
Any questions? The conversation about what that litmus test will be for a signature or a signature event. Up to this point, is that a conversation that's
What the, sorry, what?
the designation for a signature event? Has there been a conversation like the litmus is?
No, we haven't yet. We've just been outlining sort of what those, what the items would be, for a signature event, whether it will all be waived services. And then is it that boost tourism, create an economic impact? Are we looking more at community-based events, et cetera? Are we looking at both? So we have our list, and Scott and I still actually have to connect on that, and also like what the budget would be, or would it just be comp services? And what would qualify as a signature event?
And that was my third question, the budget, if we had an idea what it looked like. And the third was, when do we expect this to be completed? Would you have a lot of program for nonprofits or those older events to actually apply?
On my transition timeline, I have by the end of the month to have this outline completed. With the chamber agreement ending in September, and with their assistance, I would expect to ideally have something by then. As they're in contract to assist us with that.
Yeah, and it's questions, so great, thank you.
I think my only question is that have we had any discussions with, or do we have internally or externally with businesses around Courthouse Square to host portions of these events, or to have a referral process? I know there's at least 3 businesses on Courthouse Square specifically that have private rooms for, I don't know, for a VIP or anything like that. But to not only have these downtown, but also help the businesses around Courthouse Square.
We have, we've had some extensive conversations with some of the downtown businesses, some of whom are already participating, they're activating the events, and then others who also find the events challenging to their business, frankly. We've been putting together an event merchant synergy guide, which can outline how merchants and event organizers can work together. And the part of the roles and responsibilities of that new position will be to sort of liaise between the event organizers and the downtown businesses to help either maximize opportunities for that, as you're indicating, and to address, complaints or concerns.
Great, thank you. We'll go on to public comment for the second half of this item, which is the special events downtown and everything that comes with it. Any public comment on this item? See none, we'll close public comment, come back. Any final comments on the item?
I think it's absolutely phenomenal that promoters and event organizers are having direct contact with the city, with the process in itself. I'm hoping that when the determination for signature events is had, a conversation, that we definitely look at those events that are longstanding and have defined by the city of Santa Rosa. 7 will come to mind, but I'm also hoping that some of those funds will be for those who are starting blessing events in the city of Santa Rosa. And I think it's absolutely phenomenal that we're also blessing that we're offering assistance to the organizers, that sometimes it is a matter of a couple bucks that makes a difference. So I'm actually very excited about this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll move on to 9.5.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on, I know this is a long meeting. We appreciate everyone's stamina. So sticking with Meredith, we're going to receive an update on the Sawa panels.
Thank you. Saving the best for last. I've been here for almost a year, and this has been an agenda I am on. I know many agendas, and I was doing some research on Rosa Sawa the other night, the panels, and I felt it was really important to remember who this artist was and what these panels mean to us, and to her family and the arts and the community. She really stood for community, resilience, and innovation. Her historical and cultural impact in our area that we have, it's such a treasure. So I think it's just important to remember that, as I think sometimes the discussion can get lost on some of the items. So today I'll be discussing the next steps on the status of the contract with the library, and some temporary options as well. So, the digital scanning has been executed and however, the Foundry contract expired. So therefore, on the 17th of June, that item will be going to council. And then you'll see an updated cost for the 3D printing, casting, patina, and finishing. This updated cost, as much as costs have gone up, the original contract that was brought to you actually did not include tax, engineering, and there were some left out items. Also, that original contract did not have the correct dimensions of the panels. So it did increase by a significant amount of feet. That was after that contract was signed. So they had moved forward with the digital scanning, but when we were receiving new estimates, I put a timeline together of all those estimates, and we could see that there were some missing pieces. We also had changed the process to printing it in bronze. So it's also that process change as well. With that additional cost, we had spent 30,000 on the digital scanning of the original contract. So there was 270 left. And then we have additional funds, the Public Art Fund, they've approved $75,000 to spend on this project. And then the rest of leftover funds, around 83,000 in a courthouse square reunification fund that we'll be using. The approval of the digital edits will be needed by the Rosa family, so we won't be able to move forward until those are approved, because some touch-ups had to be made on the panels because some piece had broken and it was in disrepair, the panels. Really. And they're interested in the possible donation of those panels. Once those are printed, we could hand those to the family. And once the contract is signed, we are looking at about 6+ months for the printing of this. Ideally, we could start this summer. We've also moved forward with an updated panel layout. Before we were waiting on the fountain to be built. And the reason is that this was going into a recessed cavity. And so those dimensions had to be exact. So we were waiting on the fountain to ensure those dimensions so that we could remeasure and then pour it into that. Well, we still haven't received a timeline. However, they have sent in their paperwork for the encroachment permit. We wanted to move forward with these panels, again, going back to the importance of this for the community and get these on display. So we've moved the fountain design to more of a flat concrete wall. So these would be able to do a wall mount. It would be the exact same mounting they were going to do before. We're still deciding if there's going to be a cap over the panels, just a little ledge. And so this is just the front panels dimensions, and you would see that there would be some concrete still framing in the edges, but it's not inside the cavity.
Okay, and if I may through the chair, also as we've been moving forward this work with regards to the assault panels, our division has taken an approach where we're trying to focus on our contractual obligations, which is the finishing and pouring and casting of the panels. This has been a project that's been many years in the making. It's experienced some unfortunate delays. And so there are some alternative presentation methods that we can discuss if for whatever reason the fountain construction continues to be delayed, but the panels are completed in advance. And so we just wanted to share some renderings, and we've reviewed these also with other executive leadership just to demonstrate that there are ways that we can display the panels in another fashion so that we can bring Rosa's work back into the community rather than waiting on the fountain construction. And these are just two concepts. There are a number of ways that you could display the panels downtown.
And that's very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah. Well, what is the barrier to the fountain?
The barriers and just the delays we've been experiencing.
Yeah.
A number of design related delays and also delays related to costs increasing. Meredith has had a number of direct conversations with the other party to the contract about that process. Their permit has been submitted.
Is this Futrell?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But do you have anything else that you want?
Well, we've been meeting and Betsy and I worked with Hugh on their design and moving forward. And they did submit their paperwork for the building permit, which is an encroachment permit. And I believe we're actually waiting on the insurance and then hope to move that forward.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so if we did it this way first, would then when the fountain goes in, would they be moved?
Yes, if we displayed them temporarily on this, it would be temporary and then we could move them on the fountain. And again, if the fountain is being built at the same time the panels are being poured in this next year, ideally it goes hand in hand and maybe we don't do the temporary display. But the idea is that we could pour these fountains before, or the panels before. And if needed, either we put them on the fountain or we can put them on a temporary display.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
clarification.
In packet, it says that these will be facing Fourth Street.
This was the updated panel layout. So there's going to be 4 sides of the fountain.
Okay.
And so this is showing you that there would be some concrete on that. So this is just one of the sides.
Okay, very well. And if I'm not mistaken, the fountain will be facing, actually on the southern portion of Courthouse Square.
The design as it stands now is to place the fountain on that portion of Courthouse Square where,
The stage.
typically during events, the temporary stages have been set.
Okay, very well. And then on the other side, we have the Wyndham statue.
Right.
Okay, very well. And, so this will actually temporarily be facing, Beer Baron and all those other business on that side temporarily.
This is just a concept rendering and it would likely be one panel. And we have gotten costs from the foundry to temporarily display a panel, potentially adding a plaque about Ruta Sala, who she is. But again, that's something that would come back later if for some reason we continue to experience delays with the construction of the fountain.
Very well.
I don't have any questions on this, so we'll go to public comment on this item. Please. Do you have any details?
I'm never gonna get into that. I'm just trying to help here. So I'm pro saving money. Obviously, we have a pretty deep deficit that we're grappling with. And so I think we can wait, even if the fountain is delayed, we can wait a little bit longer. It's not, for me personally, I guess I've lived here 8 years now, but for me personally, the fountain going back is not a huge priority. It will be nice, but let's save money where we can. So, and I'm all about art installations. God knows we need more art in our community. And so, but for right now, let's, if we can tighten the belt, let's tighten the belt.
Anybody else would like?
I just wanted to know, I heard you say it's not concrete or that it's not bronze. What's it made of?
There's no back and forth.
Yeah, I know there isn't, but I have to ask the question because I couldn't hear it, so I'm just bringing it up.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Public comment? Seeing none. What are they made out of? If you could read the address out
The
again.
panels.
Yeah.
Bronze.
Okay, thank you. Final comments?
Yeah, well, the boat has some, especially when I see the ship there. But, I'm thinking we're now, and this conversation did not have happened prior to us discussing the fountain. But when I think of the cost that different events incur, part of that is the stage itself and the labor and the rental of cost of that as well. But I understand that the fountain will be taking up that space where the stage is, and then, it's just a comment. But nonetheless, though, in hindsight, I might as well wear cape when I say that. For the fountain to have been placed on the east side of the courthouse and the stage on the south side of the courthouse square would have been great, but then again, it is hindsight. And I'm not an architect nor am I an engineer, and I haven't been out there with the tape measure to see that we're actually working on.
All right. It was, maybe, I don't know, almost 20 years ago that I got to see a Ruta Sala installation at the DeYoung Museum. And I think for anybody who isn't aware of the deep impact and significance of this artist, it's really worth looking into what a big deal this is and how lucky we are to have this art here in Santa Rosa. Staff, thank you so much for taking the initiative to figure out a path that was with the fountain and a path that was without the fountain, understanding the urgency of getting this into downtown and using the art funds that are dedicated to, making sure that our community has art. That's, we have these public funds, we have to spend them on this art. They can't be spent for anything else. So thank you. You have my full support to do whatever is necessary to get these panels on the courthouse square quickly, with and without the fountain. And we will do what we can to make sure that the fountain also comes in a timely manner. And it will, thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, first I want to say you've made 2 puns now when you've apologized for them. I think our previous colleague, Chris Robbins, said it.
I was gonna say.
Just lean into it, man. Just lean into it.
I'll have to know, we were at the event at Rosa Main Street, and I was in charge of the chips. And one of the last puns that he did, he actually looked over, he had a bag of chips, and he puts one of his on my shoulder, and it was like, a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, just lean into the puns. We're used to it. But I agree with my colleagues. There's a lot of logistics in terms of the stage, but also the very massive importance of these panels with or without the fountain. I think my point of view, I do not have any sort of education in art. I think I can appreciate art, but if my colleagues agree, this is a complicated topic that I think would be best suited for the Arts and Public Places Committee to handle and maybe provide a recommendation to council. I don't know if you guys would be okay with that.
Yeah, I think that if there are things that are within their purview to make a recommendation to us in terms of layout or whatever, I mean, none of us on the city council are artists or should be tasked with pretending to be.
I would agree. So, yeah, I think, right, within their purview, what are their recommendations in terms of the importance of displaying and how they're displayed, those kind of things. Then when it gets down to the funding and all that stuff, that's when it comes to us. I think that would be best suited.
If I may, through the chair, I do want to acknowledge Director Osborne's leadership throughout this entire process. We were receiving a tremendous amount of pressure, not only from the community, but also from our boss. And so I had a conversation with him to say, what are alternatives? And up until, all of this started before I got here. And the thinking was, well, we've got to wait for the fountain before we can pour the panels. And so for him to even be open to an alternative, for me to ask him, well, do we really have to wait? Right? He could have said yes, but he didn't. He said, no, we can go look back and look at the design. And it was, to your point, to honor Rosa South, that these things were just hanging in storage. And my concern was, if we should be waiting for the construction of the fountain for another 5 years, then we're doing the artist a disservice. And so for him to be open to that conversation and then work with the team to find an alternative path. And then I want to underscore that staff figured out a way to get this done without impacting the general fund. And I know there is no back and forth, but to answer the question that was raised for public comment, the fountain itself, the city does not bear that cost. So just to be clear, the city is responsible for the pouring of the panels and displaying the panels, but the fountain itself is not the city's fiscal responsibility.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
With that, I know Councilmember Fleming has do you want to step out now, or are you good to go for another item?
I probably ought to go. I'm really sorry.
Probably coming up.
Okay.
There's no problem. So as she closes up, we'll go into 9.6 metrics and indicators.
Yes, as Councilmember Fleming brought up earlier, the conversation about data and analytics. And so this is also part of the conversation that we're having as a division and bringing more data and analytics to you. And integral to that discussion is the one-stop shop, which is going to be the online dashboard and portal, which will display some of these metrics and some of the data points that we've already discussed in previous meetings in this subcommittee. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Program Analyst Rachel Beer, who's going to give a one-stop shop update and talk about some of the other measures that are being taken to move forward the staff and interest conversation. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So our one-stop shop project is in the contract phase right now. We're really excited to begin working with the creative agency that we've selected. So we'll have more information on the next steps about that soon. We did meet with Dr. Eiler from Sonoma State about working on our economic dashboard. And so this will be, like Scott mentioned, incorporating data into our one-stop shop. So what Rafael Rivero and I are working on right now is gathering all of our information, all of our data, all of our edits to the website, and compiling the information that we want on our one-stop shop. And then also he's gathering the information as the small business ombudsman from our small businesses and our business during our business meetups about what we want to be seen on our one-stop shop. So right now we're compiling all of our data, all of our information, and preparing for the contract to be executed and completed so we can start working on it.
Yeah, and that contract has gone through review with our initial review with the CAO and risk. And so we're feeling confident in that contract moving forward. And then when that contract is executed, then we will begin the actual work of constructing the online portal. And we've already taken from discussions in past meetings, the list of the indicators that this body is looking to see on a regular basis, because those will come not only as reports to this body, but they will be the Santa Rosa report card, if you will, that will be displayed online. With that, I can also add that part of this conversation, after about 9 months of work, we were able to get our contract executed with a company called Placer AI. Placer AI offers some mobile analytics data that will help us to track the movement of individuals to and from different businesses or public areas, events, etc. And so we can start reporting back on some approximations now that we have the Placer AI modeling software as well.
Any questions?
Listen,
Just one question. When you say track individuals, you're not talking about personal information, correct?
No.
Just want to make sure that's on the record.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move to public comment on this item. Anybody, public comments? 9.6, measures and indicators. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to 9.7.
9.7, Chair, just some other updates and announcements on some things that we're working on. And first, I'm going to turn it over to Director Osborne, who's going to give us an update on entertainment zones and also the conditional use permit and vacant building and lots program.
All right, thank you, Scott. And just being sensitive to time, these are really highlighting some, I think, bigger discussions that the committee will have moving forward. So we'll give a high level, get a temperature check of where the committee feels with some of these topics, and then do a bit of a deeper dive in future agendas. The first item is entertainment zones. An entertainment zone is a fairly new concept. I believe it really spawned out of some of the work San Francisco did. But the general point of an entertainment zone is it's a defined boundary. It's usually signed as a defined boundary. Businesses within that defined boundary can sell alcohol at the business, and someone can take that alcohol outside of the business as long as they stay within the entertainment boundary. So the benefit that creates is that when we have events and things that draw people outside, there's a potential benefit to the brick and mortar businesses adjacent to that, because they now can sell alcohol and that can be used at the event. In the absence of that, alcohol is typically then purchased at the event. And sometimes that action actually cannibalizes the business that would normally occur at the brick and mortar. So really the way this process works, it evolved, and there was legislation that kicked out of the state. This is SB 969. And as of January 1, 2025, a local jurisdiction can define an entertainment zone. And then within that entertainment zone, it operates in a similar fashion. So the jurisdiction can define the boundaries in the entertainment zone. The jurisdiction can define the type of alcohol that is consumed in the entertainment zone and the hours of operation of the entertainment zone. It can be all the time. It can be Saturdays. It can be during events. So there's quite a bit of flexibility there. One of the first steps in this process, which we are doing now, is the jurisdiction must engage with law enforcement to get feedback through that process regarding the boundary and the type of container. So non-metallic, and it can't have glass and it can't have metal is the easy way to look at it. But oftentimes there are some concerns about branding and how you connect the container to the business to make sure we're running into compliance. So we are researching that. We will come back to the committee probably as a start. There likely will be a study session in front of the full council before we adopt that. It's a bigger package of some of our economic development initiatives. But I can pause there, Chair. I know this is a bit unique than, outside of the other. I'm happy to take any questions.
No, more comments and questions.
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions at this point. Since. Yeah, why don't we go to
Right.
comments, why don't we do comments and go, and then we'll do public comments, the items.
Okay, so I can move on to our next bullet then before I hand it back to Scott. As part of that package 2, as I mentioned, we have potential changes to our use permit process. I know this is a piece that Vice Mayor Alvarez, I apologize, sir, has brought up on a few occasions. So this is, as we've gotten through the general plan, a lot of our capacity in our advanced planning team is moving towards economic development initiatives at this point. So you'll see a little more activity in the summer. One of the pieces that we are really focused on is when a business starts with a concept and has identified a location, how quickly can we get them to basically opening those doors? Because time is money in that process. The way processes work is land use entitlements or use permits are linear. They go first and then you go to building permit after that. So those processes can easily lead into 6 months when public hearing processes are associated with the use permit. So what we've been looking at and what we presented to the council, which the council adopted, was our CHB package, where it really looks at a director level approval. That still has noticing, that still has appeal processes, so the public still has that right. But by doing that, we can streamline that process. So right now, we're working very closely with our city attorney's office to understand what that would look like and understand how we actually can create a more streamlined process. In addition to that, we're looking at flexibility in the use. And really what we're seeing downtown is the transition from a restaurant with drinks, which can be referred to as a bar, to a nightclub. And that's what's happening with just music being injected into either the building or the exterior space. When you talk about entertainment zones and a lot of that outdoor activity and trying to drive people when it's food, music, and alcohol, the music becomes a critical component to that. So what we're looking at is how does one make that transition? So it's an existing business, is that more simplified? Now that gets into noise ordinance issues and some of the other impacts that the community can have. But we're seeing that organically evolve in the downtown, and we want to understand how we can support that. So that's really part of the process as well. And happy to answer any questions about that.
And that right there makes me believe that we're worth the title of being the most friendly city when it comes to business. That is why. I'll have you know, I was conflicted about the title as knowing many DJs in the area. The amount of obstacles that any business in any jurisdiction has to deal with. But when you have those personal connections with business owners and you understand the history of downtown Santa Rosa and how it's evolved and how it's progressed, and it's also how it's been hindered by those laws that pertain, and not just this jurisdiction, but yet we are definitely being proactive in our mythology and our efforts to support and really nurture our local economy. This is why we've been the same way, and this is why we're not the Santa Rosa of 10, 15 years ago when it comes to how we address business in the city of Santa Rosa. It makes me proud.
Good, thank you. I have nothing on that, so let's move on to Scott's portion.
Yes, thank you, Director Osborne, and thank you, Chair. Moving on to the last 3 bullet points are mine. Tourism strategic planning. Just want to update the committee that we are working closely with the Santa Rosa Metro Chamber on the evolution of that contractual agreement. There are actually 2 contractual agreements with the chamber. The earlier one mentioned being related to events, this contractual agreement being related to tourism Visit Santa Rosa. That particular contract is 14 years old, and so the scope of services is very outdated. So we're having conversations now about what is evolving into pre-planning for doing a tourism strategic asset plan, so we better understand tourism in our community, and so that any contracts with regards to tourism are rooted in strategic planning. So we're working on that now, more to come on that. With that, with regards to SRTBIA, the SRTBIA has historically funded quite a few initiatives related to tourism. because we're looking at an evolution of the relationship with the chamber and an evolution of how we spend money on tourism-related initiatives. We're also looking closely at the SRTDIA budget, how those funds are being deployed, and also looking at the original intent from the California Streets and Highways Code, which lays out the purpose of these tourism-based improvement districts, what the role, responsibility, and authority of those boards is, and what the funds are to be used for. So future recommendations concerning not just tourism, but also that SRTDIA funding will be coming forward. And again, we're working closely with the chamber on that. And then lastly, my last update is with regards to USL. As your committee knows, and for the members of the public who are here, an exclusive right to negotiate agreement was executed with United Soccer League, and that was brought to council in April. Since that time, we've been doing some outreach, working with community members. Most recently, that outreach included what we call the Coaches and Clubs conversation, which was actually hosted here in our business lounge, where we invited soccer club representatives and coaches to come meet with staff so that we could learn more about the needs of the soccer community, and also for them to have an opportunity to meet with USL representatives. And then we also conducted our first USL community forum that was held at Epicenter. We had at this first forum, over 50 residents came to participate in discussions and visioning exercises to not just learn about USL and USL's plans for the community, but also for staff to collect input from community members on what it is that they'd like to see for sports entertainment in our community as we move forward. So again, that's in progress, and we'll continue to keep you updated on that front. And that concludes my updates. For other updates and announcements.
Questions?
No questions.
I have no questions. Let's go to public comment 9.7. Any of these items? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. And we will move on to item 10. Peter. Comment, sorry.
Oh, no, and I did forget something when it came down to the VBL. Is there a breakdown of where we're seeing enforcement needed and fines imposed, and can we receive a report of that?
Yes, I apologize, Vice Mayor. I think
No, I apologize for
that point. So yes, so what we've seen with the VBL, we're in the very beginning stages of enforcement. We're really trying to determine the appropriate balance. VBL is a very proactive enforcement, and we're understanding the level of need to really get to where we're finding. Graffiti and some of those things that, for lack of a better term, fall into the category of blight are usually what gets us into that. But what we're starting to do is understand the balance of general day-to-day maintenance may not result in a fine. Much of the fencing that you see in the downtown is a VBL action. One of the best ways to address the regular occurrences is to secure the site. How we're balancing that out is we've had some discussions with our program about how we potentially can create a bit more of a beautification around that. But yes, if the committee would like to see data on VBL actions and how those VBL actions have been progressing in the downtown or just in general, we do have that data, and we would be happy to provide it.
Sure. Appreciate it. And second comment that I wanted to make was in regards again to the entertainment zone. I'm sorry, I'm thinking a little bit in reverse here. Hopefully you're not going to recreate the wheel. I know that Toddy, Sebastopol, and a couple of jurisdictions do have programs in place. Everything from the container that they use, as well as when it's actually permissible. I know that with the difference between Sebastopol and Kentucky, it's not the same, but the usage is the same. So just throw it out there. And that would be the end of my comments and questions.
Yeah, I mean, as far as entertainment zones, I think starting off with special events is the easiest way to do that. You know when they're happening, when they start, when they end, and those kinds of things. Yeah, and for the USL update, just could you explain how we've had conversations about that this is not just a Santa Rosa thing? Can you talk about the relationship with Santa Rosa representing the greater community, how we're
Yes, Chair, I'd be happy to. So one of the reasons why United Soccer League decided to enter into the exclusive right to negotiate with Santa Rosa versus the county in general or other communities is because of Santa Rosa's position as sort of the center of the economic sphere of influence for many communities, and also because of Santa Rosa's resources, capacity to honor the obligations in the ERN, and because of the density. USL is looking for population and a maximum of density for this type of, for a proposal for bringing a champion level men's and women's soccer league and potentially placement of a stadium. So with that, we are working very closely with our county partners. We've had conversations with county staff. We were doing that with the direction and guidance approval of our city manager. I know that she's having conversations with the county administrator. We're also talking with other cities and how we can bring them into the conversation and how this really can be a regional wide effort and how everyone can benefit from it.
Great, thank you. I think one thing that's also important to include in that is the community forums. We've already had discussions that this is not just a Santa Rosa thing. We will have more in various parts of Santa Rosa, but we will work with our fellow our colleagues in other municipalities to have them there as well to reach out, because this is, as we're saying, a greater Santa Rosa, greater Sonoma County effort. So we want to be able to include everybody. So with that, unless you have anything else to add.
I do.
All right, we'll move on to item 10, future agenda items. Do you have any future agenda items?
No, no, sir.
Neither do I. And then with that,
I have one future agenda
Okay.
item that we'll be bringing just to share in August. We will be bringing a presentation on sales tax from the city's finance team. And at that time, we will also be bringing the gap analysis and leakage reports on retail in the community.
great, thank you. And then finally, I just want to say thank you to the team for putting this all together. I think going forward with the situation we're in financially in the city, these are going to be some party meetings, just because this is one of the ways that we can help mitigate some of the financial issues that we're having. So thank you so much for all of your effort in being here. And with that, we will adjourn at 11:20.